everyone. Welcome to the Wine Down. I feel like I don't need to say it because
there's wine.
Yeah, there's wine.
We're
That Hillary gets to drink.
The 111 blend today, and by we, I mean me. So let me just do a little bit of this action.
It's not fair, I tell you. It's not fair.
Well, you have your blend.
I have my blend.
Not quite the same.
Not quite the same. Cheers.
But cheers to
Enjoy.
Friday. Oh, this is nice. I mean, yeah, it's nice. Sorry.
What if, like, throughout the episode we just keep pouring more into your glass?
It may happen, so please no judgments. It's been a long week.
It has been a long week, everyone. It's been a long week. And I like what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
We are talking about things that we've learned throughout the course of our time at ROI TV. And I was thinking about it last night, and I'm telling you, like, the list kept going and going and going. And I was really impressed with that because, like, numbers, anything financial, like anything like this is not my forte. It's never been my thing. And I've sort of been learning without even realizing it in a way.
Yeah.
And realizing how so many of the topics are interconnected in a sense. Like, we'll be talking about one thing and I'm like, oh, that reminds me of, like everything, it kind of rolls.
It all comes together.
Yeah.
It's all interwoven.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because it feels like so many different facets to learn about, but in a way, a lot of them are pretty connected.
I agree. As I was thinking about the theme of this episode and trying to, like, organize my thoughts, I was also thinking, I was like, there is so much that I've learned in just through osmosis and learning of reading the articles and then also talking about them with you.
Yep.
And the other day I was at my day job, my work, and just started talking about finance. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, on today's episode of Coffee with Kevin Hills, we talk about saving versus spending. And
it's weird how a lot of the articles come up in real life situations when you're with, like, family or friends or whatever, and you're like, weirdly enough, I actually know a lot about this topic.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of amazing, actually. It makes me feel very smart, financially literate.
There you go.
Okay, so kind of diving into some things that have stood out that I've learned. Again, it's kind of an extensive list because I started at like 0. So, so it was easy for my list to grow from 0, I guess. But I thought I've been very inspired by the constant reminder of compound interest and how that really, benefits your gain, your money gain. And it has inspired conversations in my household from me about really talking about where any potential excess money is sitting and where it really should be to make the most gain.
Yeah.
Which was something we never thought about before. I think that we would be like, oh, it's good to have, like, we have some cash. Let's, like, just leave the literal cash in the house. You know what I mean? Which we learned you don't really need that much.
Right. Yep.
Just because, you might need it at some point or whatever.
Right.
And then, but really looking at, where just kind of dead money is sitting and it's not growing.
Ooh, I kind of like that term.
Dead money. We don't want to bury our money. We want it to live and thrive and grow.
Exactly.
So that is something, because it comes up quite often as well, and it's been a very, very good reminder for me, and it's made us kind of reallocate our funds a little bit.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's great. I think one of the things that I have learned, and you kind of touched on it before, but one of the major themes that keeps coming back to me is just how pervasive finance is in your everyday life without even realizing it.
Yeah.
So I love that whole diatribe from Devil Wears Prada, where she talks about the color cerulean and how she talks about how it was from an Oscar de la Renta show that was like 5 years prior, that then translated to Yves Saint Laurent and then to other designers that then made its way to like regular retailers. Yeah. And that's what Andy is wearing. But that's how finance is to me, is that there's all these conversations and there's things happening.
That's a really good analogy.
There's things that happen in the stock market.
Yeah.
And if you aren't paying attention, it impacts your bottom line, or it can impact your finances, whether it's your spending or your saving or your retirement. Yeah. But it's not something that you might understand the direct impact of, but it trickles down into everything.
Right.
And so it's something that, this is why people pay attention. This is why they, read the Wall Street Journal, they read, other financial minded programs and podcasts,
so because
it really is,
the shifts and the changes and the moves
so
that are happening.
Pervasive.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the interesting thing for me, like one of the most interesting things that I've learned. And now that I know more, I just see it everywhere.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, that's finance related. Oh, that's finance related.
You do. You see it everywhere. Mm-hmm. Or like, as you were saying, conversations are happening and you're like, this makes me think of this. Or I have some advice. Like I've had that a couple times with friends who have been talking about things financial based. And I've been like, oh, I actually think that maybe like I'll have, a tidbit of advice, which is very strange. And I'll be like, wait, who am I?
I know the difference between a traditional and a Roth IRA.
I know, I can't, she quizzed me on that in our last
yesterday.
Coffee with Kim and Hills, and I was very proud of myself.
Mm-hmm. I was very proud of you too.
I know, because I could have went either way.
Yeah, she did it spot on.
Yes.
Pretty
Thank
good.
you. Thank you very much. All right. Another thing I have learned is the importance of financial transparency, which I always felt that I had that, with my husband, and like we've always been pretty like upfront and open about things. But I think where we were lacking, that we've actually improved at, is now we are, rather than talking about like what we have right now in this moment, we're talking about what we want in the future.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? And how we can potentially get there. So as much as I thought that, we did have financial transparency, which we did, I think we've just expanded upon it to create more budgeting options that are a little more in-depth than they would have been before. Yeah. Rather, it was kind of like, how do we get by now? And how do we make like living the best it can be right now? And instead, we're like, what do we want in the future? And how can we better plan to make sure we can have those things in the future? And that's what has changed a lot, because we talk so much about retirement and how important it is to start planning for retirement, saving for retirement now, like now, like years ago, decade ago,
Totally.
So we've had some serious conversations about that, because I think both of us want to really enjoy our golden years, but also, make sure that our children are safe and set up, which brings me to trusts as well.
Ooh. Well, I'm really excited that you guys are having those forward conversations, those goal conversations, because I think that that's super important. And setting yourself up for retirement. I think I've learned a lot about specific retirement options and opportunities. I've always had a 401k. I didn't know before doing ROI that I could also have an IRA on my own. Or, as we learned when Brennan was here, that you could use your HSA as an investment account and utilize that to help grow more money for you, and then still use it for health savings or health emergencies. So I think I'm learning a lot.
I-bonds.
And I-bonds.
During inflation might be your best bet right now. Hey. We had a sit-down conversation about I-bonds the other day. And I had to text you.
Yeah, and it was like,
we're talking about I-bonds.
Kristen texted, and I was at work, and I was just like, Yes. Talking about I-bonds with your husband, like midday on a Wednesday. This is great.
And on my own.
Yeah.
Like we read an article, like, you know, to prepare for the show, you know, like I had notes on it. So I kind of learned, like, you know, the fundamentals and why it might be beneficial to get one right now with inflation being as high as it is. But then I found myself reading articles about I-bonds. I need a drink. I don't know. Growing money is interesting. I mean, if you really think about it, if you start to kind of understand the concepts surrounding ways to help your money grow, most people are going to be interested.
Yeah.
It's just when it feels like that's an unattainable option for you,
right,
or it's something that only, like, you know, really rich people do.
Right.
You know, like they're the ones who invest.
Yep.
Like that's not true.
Or they're the ones who work with financial advisors,
Right.
or they're the ones who get trusts or do estate planning.
Right.
Like, or get life insurance. Or if you get life insurance, your husband's going to kill you off. Like, these are all things that I thought of before ROI TV.
I mean, I don't know. I watch a lot of 2020. I don't know your relationship.
A lot of Law and Order, a lot of 2020, a lot of Dateline. These things all have...
I mean, that's the running joke now in the house. Like, Tam will be like, "Oh, you'll be fine if I die because you get all my life insurance." Like, it's like the joke now, right? I'll be like, "Be careful going to work. Be careful on the subways. Be careful." And he's like, "Oh, come on. You want that money?" I'm like, "Oh, please. You're such an idiot." He's British, by the way. Right. That was my bad British interpretation of my husband.
It's great.
Yes, but he does sound very brooding like that.
He does sound very brooding.
Yes, to an extreme.
We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with more of what we learned since ROI TV has launched.
Welcome back. We have a lot more to talk about what we've learned throughout the course of our time at ROI TV. So another conversation that I've been having with my husband, and we're in the process of working towards, but it is very complicated, is creating a trust.
Yeah.
And that's become very important to me since ROI TV and since learning about the ins and outs and how much that will protect my children.
Yeah.
And it's made me very fearful that, like, I probably would have, like, just kind of gone on with life, and who knows when I would have thought to do it. And I had this conversation because I was talking about it with my mom yesterday, actually. And I was saying, like, oh, it's hard because we have to come to a decision together about a lot of really big life decisions if he and I were to pass away. And she even told me, my mom told me, she was like, you know, I didn't think about it until you girls were like 16 years old. She was like, and then we kind of came across, like, you know, a family that we felt like, you know, might be good, you know, godparents, right, you know, someone that you would take care of. Like, she just said, I didn't think about it. You don't think about it because they were young, and it's not a fun thing to talk about.
I think anything with death feels easy to put off for a couple of reasons. One, we all think we're invincible until you aren't.
Especially when you're young. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And two, it's uncomfortable to talk about death in our society specifically.
Yeah.
But these are things, once something happens, if somebody dies, you can't go back and redo it. You're done. It's not like...
if you haven't set anything up, imagine what that leaves for your children and your family to deal with and guess. You know, like all the guessing people would have to do, and the tension within like, you know, two different sides of a family as well. It's like, to make those decisions, it's not fair for your children or your family. It's really, like, that scared me into being like, we have to do something. We have to make these decisions. And it's a process too. So really starting that process is key, because you really have to come to a comfortable agreement with what you want for your children.
Yeah. And what you want with whatever assets you have. And I think that was an uncomfortable conversation for us to have a while ago. But then I also learned through ROI TV that since we've done our trust multiple years ago, things have changed.
You
And
need
so
to update your trust.
I need to update it. And so that's on our to-do list this year, is to make it updated. Like, duh.
Right. We did learn that. We've learned that. We've been reminded on ROI TV, you need to update that trust and sign it.
Yeah. Yes. Sign it. Please make sure it's done.
Make sure it's signed. Okay, so another topic that we've talked about a lot is financial transparency with the children and involvement in the household finances and making them active participants in, not like major financial decisions, but like so that they feel like they are contributing and they sort of gain a sense of authority over, how finances work within the house, and in life. And I think I'm excited to do that with Murphy. I think it's kind of a fun way to bond anyway. Like if you're going to the grocery store and you're like, having them look at like what's on sale versus what's not and what would you choose and doing some of the math themselves or just having them be more hands-on in the process.
Yeah.
And then teaching them some savings, some ways that they can save themselves, right? If it's through chores, if it's through when they're old enough, like a summer job or whatever it is.
Yeah, and teaching them the value of money and a dollar. I think obviously a dollar back when we were kids bought you more, and now it doesn't buy you quite so much, but there's still a lot of value in teaching how much your money can get you. So setting budgets for them. One of the tips that we had heard recently was giving them like a clothing budget, like for back to school shopping. This is when your kids are a little bit older, and giving them the option of saying, do you want these 5 things for $20 or do you want this one thing for $20? Like you get to choose how to build your closet, but just know like this is how much money you have to spend.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Not that they have to spend all the $20. They could then, maybe only spend 15 and then put the 5 to savings or something.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes,
but
so you're teaching the savings, aren't you?
But I think that there's small ways that you can integrate kids into a money conversation that feels age appropriate.
Right.
And you're able to teach them, know? And I think that I'm also really excited about that.
Yeah, I know. Murphy's only 1, so I mean, we're still working on, dada, mama.
But it'll be here before you know it. That's the crazy part.
Well, right now it's just dada, dada, dada.
Aww.
Like, mama. He thinks it's great.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah, he definitely does. All right, another thing I learned, and this was after the fact working here, was I am a first-time homeowner, and my husband and I bought our house in 2020, right when the pandemic sort of hit.
Yep.
And it actually was a pretty good time to buy. Didn't know. We actually thought it was probably the opposite. We're like, what are we doing? This is crazy. There's a pandemic that's like happening, and but I was of the myth that it was within our best interest to put down 20% to avoid the PMI, which I learned isn't always your best option, which also probably happened because, in retrospect, we didn't do our due diligence shopping for a lender.
Yep.
We had one person recommend somebody that we trusted, and we were like, oh, okay. And that person sort of talked over our heads in a lot of ways, and we just kind of thought that was the process, and we did not know that much about it. So we were kind of scrambling to understand what was going on. So I don't think that we knew all of the best options for us.
Yeah.
So like those myths, like we kind of were like, oh, we need to get that, that 20%, and that was like a huge chunk of our money that we had.
Yeah.
And we were so proud of ourselves for getting to that 20%.
That is.
That's
but impressive.
It left us with nothing. So
as it does.
Yeah. So, in retrospect, it would have been nice. I would have done things completely differently had ROI TV came before the home buying process. Although I'm glad I'm not buying a home right now.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
I've also learned that it would be very hard to be a first-time homeowner in today's market. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think we shopped around slightly, but ended up going with the bank that I have banked with for, since my parents and I opened up a bank account when I was like 5 years old. And really actually disliked the process with that person.
Yeah.
Because they were just like, well, this is what you do and this is how you do it.
Right.
But like didn't actually explain the process. Like, you need to get me all this paperwork. Why didn't you get me all this paperwork? And you were like, maybe if you read your email, you would have seen we sent you all that paperwork a week ago.
Oh, great.
And so I think we would have just shopped around with somebody who was willing to work with us a little bit better.
Right.
And knowing that you have to do that shopping for the rate on the same day makes a huge difference.
Right.
So, I think that we definitely, and we bought our place in 2019, so we're really lucky that rates were still low, the market wasn't crazy.
Right.
But
so even if you didn't have the lender of your dreams, thank goodness the market was in a good place for buyers.
Yeah, exactly. But there's just so much about real estate and home purchasing that we've learned
majorly
just by doing this show. So there's been a lot.
Yep, we've learned a lot.
Yes.
Moral of the story, we've learned a lot over here at ROI TV. We are becoming more financially literate by the day. And hopefully everyone watching this is as well. And you're like nodding along and saying, yes, me too, me too. That would be the dream, truly. Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we will be right back to drink more wine and talk about what we've learned on ROI TV.
I think I need a refill.
I think you do too. Jeez, good on you. Welcome back, everyone. All right, so I feel like it's important that we talk about how we sort of got to where we are. In like the kind of the financial confidence that we've built throughout this process. And I just want to remind everyone that might just be tuning in now, I don't know, hi if you are. Welcome to the Wine Down.
Hope you have a glass of wine.
That I still don't feel like I'm an expert by any means, but this has taken, like what I feel that I've learned, like everything that we've listed today, it has taken up to, oh my gosh, when did I start? At the end of August of last summer. Yeah, so it's taken months, of just kind of chipping away at, these different areas of finance to really better understand it and breaking it down, which I think is what the network does really, really well. And I've watched so many of the videos. I mean, so many of like the episodes from the station, and that has really helped me inform, different areas of finances, whether it be real estate, retirement, investing, you name it, basically budgeting, like basically anything, everything. And what's really cool is that I didn't realize throughout this time that I was sort of unlocking this understanding of all of these things that felt really intimidating and like lock and key, like somewhere that I couldn't access. And suddenly it's kind of like, but it has taken some time and effort and reading articles. And that's why, tuning in, to, of course, tune in to like our station, but as we always say as well, talking to a financial advisor, doing your due diligence to research and build your financial literacy, because it's not something that is offered to us, unfortunately, yet. In some places it is.
Thanks, Utah, and your high school education requirement.
It's just it's so necessary for people just to thrive in life,
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's one of those things where coming into this, I was a little intimidated to be able to speak to people about finance. It wasn't my forte. Even within my day job, it's not my forte.
Yeah.
But it's something that as like we read probably 2 to 3 articles sometimes 4 or 5 each day to get ready for the next episode. And that has helped me get a better understanding, but over time. So it just does take time and like spending time in the subject and watching the shows. I also have learned so much from the different shows. Not all of it is like applicable to me at this point in my life, but things that I'm putting in my back pocket and saying, okay, I need to remember that for when I'm closer to Social Security.
Or things that we didn't do before that we can help our children better prepare for.
Exactly.
You know, it's all sort of interconnected in a way.
Totally.
And I also think you keep, like, we'll learn one thing, but then you get reminded.
Yes.
You know, like you'll continue to get reminded about compound interest.
Right.
Or the importance of a trust. Or your life insurance, whatever it is. It's like, it's these constant reminders that it suddenly becomes part of your daily sort of vocabulary.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
You're like, oh, these are topics I'm suddenly a little more comfortable with. Oh, and things I need to start addressing. You know, because you keep getting reminded. And I think that is kind of what unlocks the full understanding, you know, because it's not like you can hear something once and be like, oh yeah, I get that, or that means something to me. You know, it's kind of like those gentle reminders that keep coming in and resurfacing, and you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, okay. I totally get this now, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I need that. I need like 50. And then I'm like, I'm with you.
And I think watching content on ROI TV or reading articles, or if you're a podcast person, like that's how you're getting your information.
Tune into our morning show.
I'm
learning so much from just the articles that we're talking about and like sharing and everything. And it's usually pretty relevant to what's going on. And yeah, I mean.
But I think it's helped me feel more confident in my financial decisions and just feel more present in the conversations that I get to have with my partner at work. And in my daily spending habits. So I've definitely learned a lot over the last few months.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. And happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Happy financial literacy every single day. And thank you for tuning into another episode of The Wine Down. We will see you soon with another bottle of wine and more financial topics.